they come up on some kind of gruesome scene, or they save someone, or they, help put out a fire or whatever. And it's just layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of traumatic stress. And I recognize that they really are, they need a pathway to begin to process and deal with this. And pastors, we have it too, but not quite to that level. But I think there's some things we can learn from what you experienced and what you learned that can help us today.
Yeah. And I just want to back up a minute and say one thing that we're learning in the world of, mental health is that it's not a helpful exercise to compare our trauma and go, well, I don't have trauma. I never served as a military, veteran. I never served in combat. Like, trauma is trauma, and it can be uniquely individual from what one person is, what's traumatic to one person versus another. So I want to say, hands down, pastors deal with trauma. Not only is there the trauma that we receive in ministry from being at the scene, in many ways, we're just behind the first responders, right? We get the call when that family member's been killed in a car accident or a miscarriage or whatever. Like, we are at the scene of tragedy and sorrow. We see it there. We get secondary trauma when we sit and hear people share their stories of childhood sexual abuse and neglect and divorce and all these things. Like, we get to live out those emotions and experience that secondary trauma. And then anyone who's been leading in the church for more than about 10 minutes has also experienced firsthand trauma at the betrayal of people that you have loved and poured your heart and soul into, and they get close enough to stick a dagger in your back and twist the knife. Like, we've all experienced that. And so trauma is a real thing in pastoral ministry. It absolutely is. You don't have to be a, combat veteran or a first responder to have dealt with trauma.
Be sure to check out the full episode of the 95 podcast by going to 95network.org/podcast.